When you walk to the edge of all the light you have and take that first step into the darkness of the unknown, you must believe that one of two things will happen. There will be something solid for you to stand upon, or you'll be taught to fly. The unknown is making itself known. Like a specter or a paper tiger, it had no substance or claws. If you had reached out and touched it, your hand would have passed right through. You did not dare. What once seemed solid was just a shaky facade held together with spit and string. You held your breath so it would not topple. When it did, it turned to dust and blew away. What are you? Great, deep, unimaginable time has not served our sensibilities well. Being phosphorus matches in the winds of the universe is quite limiting. The constant, imperceptible creeping change of basic structures and function has layered a purple translucent haze on the truth. This entirely temporal, ephemeral delta change hides through obfuscated reality. Chronus, the god of time, in the orphic theogenese, clears the constructs through carbon degradation reactions. All forms of life on Earth are related. Appearances will fool the casual enthusiast. All the different forms of limbs and fins all point, when viewed with the right eyes, to a single cardinal point. The spark of life has occurred in isolation only once, as far as we can tell. No second genesis is observed yet. No different initial conditions in chemistry has ever been found in our brief existence. All life is related. That is not speculation, but observable fact. The invention of the compound microscope closed that debate forever. This factual continuum of meat means we are more alike than unlike, even if you have paws and I have fins. There are 4 great classical orders of life that we have here on this planet. We humans are the direct purposeful product of the 5th one of them. In the early phases of our development, humans appear to resemble very closely the lower kingdoms of nature. The Brahmins, the highest Hindu caste, that of the priesthood, devoted much of their developmental philosophy upon embryology. There were very astute students in the formation of the fetus in the human body. They were able to estimate an evolving embryo gradually passes through similarity to practically all previous forms of life. At a certain period in the development of the human being, there is no essential or noticeable difference between the prenatal state of a human and the prenatal state of the life in an egg. The egg is born at a certain time, but the human entity is not. It continues on to pass through further levels of modification. These different orders of life are degrees of organization through which life passes. When each life reaches the maturity of its own kingdom, it is born. From the very earliest forms, this birth is always controlled by the kingdom in which the creature belongs. Therefore, the animal entity is born sooner than that of man in development of its internal structure. It does not mean the time is necessarily longer or shorter. It means the degree of development of the structure to receive energy is longer in the more advanced forms of life. We have the human being as an isolated creature. In this being is evidence of all other kingdoms. The vegetable, the mineral, the animal is all there. In the body, the creature has built up a form structure, which is to become, finally, its initial power. From the beginning, although it may have resembled animal forms so closely in its development to deceive the superficial observer. There was never a time when the human entity, as it was evolving, was not a kingdom of its own. These classical orders of life are said to extend into a day of manifestation, the days and nights of Brahma, great divisions of time, millions of years. When the earth comes forth itself from the divine egg, manifests its manifestation and power, and finally again retires into sleep. Life is a pulsation. The pulsing of a great psychic cosmic system may require thousands of years for a single beat of that heartbeat pulse. In any event, the point to make is periodically creation manifestation goes to sleep. In this process of sleep, everything is suspended. All forms of life remain in quietude. When this time comes, nothing suffers, nothing hungers, and to enter into this sleep is no more painful than to go to sleep oneself at night. But a great suspension of life occurs periodically to constitute the great days and nights of Brahma. When this happens, the kingdoms then change. It is when the great night of Brahma settles that transition from one kingdom to another takes place. The evolution of life is therefore that the mineral life passes to a plant consciousness or takes on a plant dimension, but only in the intervals between the days of manifestation. Then the new plant, which was a mineral, begins an evolution that may take many millions of years until it completes that cycle. Now, if by chance a plant, animal, or human being for that matter, becomes more highly advanced than its kingdom, if an animal reached a point where it was practically human, where it had almost every attribute of a human being, if it reaches the point where it has outgrown its own kingdom, then it passes into a trance state and remains in this suspension until the end of the day of the manifestation. When the next day starts, then it emerges into the next higher orders of life. It cannot go back and forth between orders of life during a living pattern cycle. This transition is only possible at certain, given, and appointed times when the entire organization of the solar system steps forward on the great clock of universal time. When this actually occurs then, we will find that the animal kingdom will attain what we would consider to be the human-like state. I say considered because the Western colloquial sensibilities will not accept it. Their science will eternally be blind to this obvious truth, the ultimate futility of empiricists trying to ascribe something of unimaginable beauty. In these great change cycles, various forms of life move forward into other levels of manifestation. Since we are them and they are us, just at different points along the Darwin branches, one conclusion that must be made is that in all considerations is that what you do to another life form, you do to yourself. There is no separation besides in your misunderstandings. What must be reclaimed from the forces of entropy and apathy is empathy. What must be resparked is the human emotion that makes us compassionate, not selfish, empathic, not sociopathic, giving, not taking. What you do to others is masochistic, not sadistic. There is no valid concept of sadism. The concept of the days and nights of Brahma can be applied as all great truths can be to multiple dimensions of concepts, time intervals, and they still hold true. The constructed relationships hold out. Complexity requires multiple input channels, multiple avenues or dimensions of thought. Trying to comprehend what we are by studying science is akin to the deaf trying to comprehend thunder by studying lightning. Despite the correlations, the complete comprehension cannot be reconstructed through the abstractions of reality, reality being described as what can be measured by scientific instrumentation, the impossibly slim sliver of the eternally incomplete 1% side of science. Science can only ever measure things. Actuality is the 99% of everything else. The realms of actuality are filled with reality slivers. Intrinsic natures and Planck-level truths of the universe construction and our place and others' place in it are questions that science can never address, not since Galileo pulled the soul out of science in the natural philosophy by ignoring intrinsic natures and making mathematics king and pharaoh. The universe has panpsychism at its core. To understand actuality, you must above all else be highly aware. I ask you again, what are you? When you begin to strive to understand that question, do not fear and flinch back into the ignorance of a new mental dark age. The inevitable understanding of our situation in all this is liberating yet likely terrifying, empowering not self-defeating. Our demonstrated ability to adapt and survive in the most hostile environments makes us incredibly special, gives us the earned ability to someday storm Olympus and claim our rightful place with the alphas. This question just cannot avoid overlapping with colloquial religion. For example, the basic fundamental tenet difference between Christianity and Rosicrucianism. The difference comes down to the concept of what Jesus was. The question is, was Jesus a God that became man, or was Jesus a man that became God? Both the avenues cannot be true, even if the 1% vision of science recognizes the concept of self-organization and evolution as a driving force to higher complexity. Beyond accretion forces of matter is life. Everything that we can see supports the Jesus was a man that became God supposition. The forces that we can observe makes that observation a certainty, which is an incredibly good thing. A few ancient civilizations understood this basic truth of what we are and what we can become. It gives each and every one of us a proof of concept, a path to ascension that is attainable, a key to the great filter. Chronus is not a complete monster, but you will have to work for your eternity. It could not be any other way. As we storm the eternal, we may choose to have a machine gun in our hands or an olive branch of peace in our hearts. Choose wisely. The universe is listening. There are wrong answers which will exclude you. It comes down to your heart and courage, or lack thereof. Knowledge is power. Use it. Peace.